the days correct. This is the first time that we've sort of done two days of meetings, and so it's a little bit trickier on the scheduling. It also had a basic outline of the days in that email. So if you are coming and you did not receive that, I think they all went out yesterday. If you didn't receive that, please let me know, and we can make sure that you get it. Um, but in terms of what to expect, the majority of the people are going to be split up into regional teams. So you'll be grouped with other folks from your area, whether that's I see Tiffany here, so Tiffany with other Texas folks, um, and just trying to do that regional thematics. And so we can request meetings with a bunch of the delegation, even if you don't have a specific footprint in every district. But trying to show that, and you'll be partnered up with folks from other industries as well to show that this isn't just a one industry issue. It really is cross cutting. And so that's how we try to schedule our days. Um, the first day on Wednesday uh, is mostly folks who have a broader interest in GSP specifically. And so imports from Cambodia, Indonesia, Thailand, Philippines. Um, and I think part of this is still we've been doing these, and some of the folks have come in the past um, to talk about the importance of GSP reauthorization, the refunds. I mean, GSP is in a tough spot right now because anything tariff related is in a tough spot, and it's really hard to see much progress on GSP specifically as long as all other things trade are stuck in this rut. But I think the important part of this is still saying, look, this is out there. If you've come in the past and talked to these members and they said, hey, I support GSP, then trying to get them to reaffirm that and say, look, this is still important. Just because it's a year later, you still haven't done what you told us you wanted to do. And so let's keep that top of mind. I think a good messaging point for those of you with GSP interests is that we are dealing with so much uncertainty and so many tariff changes now that the GSP refunds that sort of you've been promising us for years are more important than ever. It's a way that, it doesn't solve the bigger tariff issues, but that injection of refunds into our business helps mitigate these other costs. So I think that's a particularly good point to raise on GSP. Um, and again, if you've met with these people in the past and they've expressed support, you know, holding their feet to the fire a little bit about not going not going quiet now that it's just a different person in charge, um, and saying, well, what can we do? Because there is a clear answer here, which is, well, you can vote to renew it. And so not letting them off the hook. Uh, Thursday, this is the first time we've done this. I've launched a new group in addition to the GSP, which is just bigger and broader, called We Pay the Tariffs. And so a lot of the folks who are coming in on Thursday don't have a specific GSP interest. And so it's just talking about tariff impacts writ large. We have an open letter there. Again, I think most of the people who are coming have signed on to that open letter as well. Um, just today, actually, I just put into the chat. We launched an interactive map that highlights all of the signers across the country. So as of now, we've got companies based in 47 states. We're going to work real hard to get those last three. But that interactive map, and then also state-specific reports that highlight tariff costs and how they've changed over time. And so we're going to be updating this. The map as signers come in, the reports monthly as new trade data comes in. But again, the message here, and this is not going to be surprising to anyone, it's a really shocking increase in the tariff costs associated with it. And then what the individual businesses, what you're doing to mitigate those costs. The number one question I get from congressional staff or the press is, when are we going to see these price increases? When does it really, really hit? And the ability to provide some of that nuance of, oh, well, we did this, but then in July we switched to this, and in August and now, it's that it changes for every company, but it's like, oh, we held off in April and May, and then in June we passed through a small price increase because we thought it's all anyone could bear. But with the new rates in effect since August, we've passed along fully, or we're still absorbing, but we pulled down 4 job listings. What are those impacts that are very specific to your business? Um, for me, my sort of philosophy on organizing these days is I don't want everyone in there just spouting talking points that come from me. There's no need to show up if you're just going to regurgitate the things that I would say. So what is most helpful is that specific aspect of, oh, well, it's not just us, the printer next door, we've canceled all of our conference attendance this year, so we're not making signs. So, there's little details about how it affects the community, um, more sort of beyond just you, that I think is really impactful with these members, because even if they don't know you per se, they might know that shop next door, or they might know some of the people who are impacted on that sort of incidental side. So just making it very personal, making it very local. I think there's some easy things to highlight, which is, if you've got your customs import declarations, you can print one out. Circle in a highlighter the tariff charge associated with this. Bring a copy and give one to each office. Um, Things like that really drive this home. You could bring in a stack of them. If you've got 60 shipments that have gotten hit, bring in a binder, just show it to them. It's like every single one of these pages reflects higher tariffs that we paid. But something that's sort of visual and gets across quickly and is really about you. Um, I think those are the little things. We're looking at doing some maybe buttons with our logos with a blank space so that people can write in how much tariffs they've paid this year. I think that's a really good sort of one number, is going into your, either doing it yourself or getting it from your broker. It's just, what is the total value of IEEPA tariffs that we paid this year? It's a really great sort of talking point. And if you can say, and this is what we expect to pay over the next month, um, I think a lot of, to be very, very frank here, the Republicans in Congress in particular, I think, are probably hoping that the courts strike this down and someone else solves the problem for them. I don't think that they really like the tariffs, but I don't think they want to stick their necks out either. So um, that point that, like, look, this is what we've paid, this is what we're going to pay. The Supreme Court may be striking this down by the end of the year, is still hugely detrimental to our business and our operations. So anything that you can sort of tee up along those lines of what are your future impacts that um, I think are also helpful. In terms of getting the message across, most of the teams here are going to have at least 6 people on them. So if you're thinking that meetings are typically running 25 minutes, you're really going to want to have an elevator pitch that gets your point across in 2 to 3 minutes. Usually, most of the folks are going to, we'll have one person in the district who's got a presence, or maybe a couple, and we'll want that person to take the lead because they are local, and everyone else will sort of jump in and say, "Oh yes, and I'm in the same boat." And but you're not going to have 15 minutes to tell your story. So just a real quick, this is who we are, this is where we are, this is what we do. Here are some of those impacts, and beyond the dollar value, what that means for our operations. In terms, like I said, the people who are registered will get more info on this, have already, but we'll get sort of more and more refined info as we get into next week. We've got check-in on the Wednesday is on the House side. It's the CTA Innovation House, where we've done some of the GSP lobby days before. On Thursday, it's at the Discus, Distilled Spirits Council of the U.S. It's on the Senate side. We also have done one of our welcome events there. I think last fall we were at Discus. Last spring we were probably at CTA, and maybe the fall before that at CTA as well. Um, but check in between 8 and 8:30. We'll probably ask most people to arrive by 8:15 or so, just so we can get everyone checked in, see who's there, see who has totally ghosted us and just not come to DC and not told us. There's always at least one, and then the expectation of sort of a welcome comments and splitting up into your teams between 8:30 and 9:30. And so that's an opportunity for you to see who else you're going to be spending the day on the Hill with, learn a little bit about what their story and their talking points are. Um, I like to joke that by the end of the day, you could all switch name tags and tell someone else's story and pretend to be from a totally different industry because you're going to hear it over and over. But making sure that you don't walk into that first meeting and go, well, I'm doing this great thing, and it's a really good thing that I'm not doing blank, and then have the next person say, "That's what I do." So that opportunity to just sort of get to know your team, I think, is important. It'll be a little less relevant on day two if you're with some of those same team members, you'll already know it. But because we've got a mix of people sort of between the days, that's still going to be your basic uh, morning routine. On From that point, everyone will set out as part of a small group. Everyone will have an individualized schedule, so you'll have a team leader who is a DC lobbyist or association person who knows their way around the Hill and can help navigate. So you're not trying to figure out like where's this next meeting at. There is someone on each team dedicated to that role who will also start off the meeting with a thank you for having us. Um, Here's who we are, and then turning it over to the companies. Um, on Thursday, we are doing a press event from 11:30 to 1, so there'll be a block in the schedule there for all teams. Um, as of now, we're waiting for final confirmations here, but Senator Cantwell plans to speak at that. Um, I'm hopeful. We're waiting to get final word back from Senator Rand Paul that he's going to speak as well. I believe Congressman Gottheimer is just doing final approvals, and then we're working on one more House Republican member. So our hope is that we have House Republican, Senate Republican, House Democrat, Senate Democrat to speak at that. We've got a press release that's going to go out later this week once we've got those confirmed. And it'll be a chance for sort of everyone to be there and some nice visuals and pictures of all the companies standing behind it. We're likely to do some signs and stuff like that. So trying to get some good visuals. We will have a videographer there that another group is bringing. And so anyone who's interested in talking to the press, I think they're going to be both at the welcome meetings and also at that press event. So we can do little sidebars. We can try to catch some content that can be put on social media later. And I expect we've gotten some inquiries from press about are there companies that we can speak with. So no one's obviously going to be obligated to talk to press, but I think both at the press event and generally, I do think there's going to be interest from reporters and just talking to anyone who's willing to talk about what those impacts are. That's most of it. The weather looks like it's going to be real nice, according to the 10-day forecast. And so I think next Wednesday is a high of 76 and sunny, and I think Thursday is 80 and sunny. So that should be nice. Uh, Comfortable shoes are really, really important. Um, there's going to be a lot of walking. We do try to, in all of our scheduling requests, we sort of do blocks of time on the Senate versus House. Some offices inevitably screw this up for us and say we can only do this, but our goal is to be on one side and then cross the Capitol once for other meetings and not cross back. There will be some groups who start on the House, go to the Senate, go back to the House, and vice versa. But we really do try to minimize that so that we're not in cabs and we don't have so much downtime. Um, Traditionally, in terms of just what to expect, we most teams have had 8 to 10 meetings over the course of the day, so it is pretty packed. I'm not quite sure if we're going to get that this time just because we're spreading it out over 2 days. And so, we're not going to have, if we've got a group of folks from California, they're not going to meet with the senators both days. So we are, I wouldn't expect quite that pace of the 8 to 10 a day, or at least not the eight, or at least not the 10, especially also with that block of time for the Senate event. But, uh, but like I said, we try to make it worth your while. You're coming a long way, a lot of you, and so we don't want you sitting around for hours, sort of twiddling your thumbs. We try to make people hustle a bit rather than go the other way. So um, I'll stop there and just answer any questions that people might have.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead and either jump them into the comments, guys, or you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask whatever you might have. I have a quick one while we're waiting for some other people. Is there a follow-up process that companies need to be aware of? Like, how can they make sure that their message sticks? Is there a way for them to get in contact with people? Do you guys do that on their behalf? What does that look like?
So I think we'll send follow up emails
Mhm.
um, to the offices. But for example, it's I think the best thing to do is for you to get the staffers, whoever you're meeting with, getting their business cards that you can follow up individually. Um, I'm gonna do follow ups, but if we have 140 meetings over the days, I might be in 8 of them. So, something that sort of stood out, if there was a funny comment that someone made, and then you can do to reference it, because you have to realize that a lot of these people that you're going to meet with might have 7 meetings like this, and the person who handles trade might also handle tax and maybe handles healthcare, and maybe some foreign affairs. And so they might have a whole range of meetings that day. Um, and so that follow up is something quick that you can do on an individual basis to reestablish that connection a few days later. Um, I think the other thing is, you know, it's definitely the case that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and so just keep pinging them. I mean, I've been sort of kicking through whether we set up a contact Congress function where we just encourage people every time they get a bill from the government that flags IEPA to just say, "Hey, got another one. This one was for $4,000. $4,227." Like the more it's you're bothering them, but also their job is to solve issues for you. Um, you can't. I wouldn't suggest doing that to, let's say, you meet with 10 people over the 2 days. You don't want to do it to someone who's not really your representative, but you can send that follow up note with the highlights. If you brought a one pager or something, you can send them the digital copy of it. But in terms of your specific member, there's there's no reason that you can't email them every week to say, "Hey, just got hit with another bill. This is why that's bad for me." Like you shouldn't have to explain it, but um, staying top of mind, I think, is really helpful here. And I think especially um, a lot of the Republicans really aren't comfortable with the current situation on tariffs. They are, I think things have to get really broken for the economy and for their constituents before most of them will consider doing anything about it publicly. But every time they hear from you and they hear that story, it's another reminder that this isn't a painless decision to stay silent. Um, and so, if you've got someone who's on the fence thinking like, man, I should really speak up, and then they get 3 more emails saying, I just paid $18,000 and laid off a person, you're just trying to continuously nudge them towards doing the right thing. I mean, I'll say this is a funny political time, um, and especially for the people who have been engaged on GSP. Um, the Democrats were incredibly difficult at getting anything to get any sort of support from them last year. Now a lot of them are like, "Aren't tariffs terrible?" So there's definitely some political opportunism that's going on now. We are trying to steer clear of that. I'm not going to jump out and start waving the flag and say oh, these Democrats have our best interests at heart. Some of them do, but some of them are, people who were very much like, oh, the tariffs you're paying aren't so bad. We're not going to do anything that might alienate labor, are now like, oh, look at Trump's tariffs. So they want it to be that Trump's tariffs are bad, but their tariffs are okay. And my advice would be to try to steer clear of those political conversations and really just bring it back to like the pain that you're feeling and sort of why it just needs to go away. And it's you'll notice that perhaps you'll notice on the stuff that we put out on we pay the tariffs and things like that, we never mention them as Trump's tariffs. Like we don't want to get into that branding because a Republican member of Congress has a really hard time doing anything that is viewed as an attack on Trump. It's much easier to say like I'm concerned about small businesses, and this is what I'm hearing from small businesses, and we recognize this is a difficult situation. That at least provides them the space to try to be public about harms as opposed to attacking the president. Um, and so on the Democratic side too, if they're saying yes, we really oppose these Trump tariffs, and you can try to steer it back and say, look, it doesn't matter who imposes them. We need them gone. It, uh, uh, again, I know Tiffany's story best here, so I don't mean to like call on her, but uh, you have this situation where the Trump administration, the first one, put the tariffs on all of the Chinese product, and then the Democrats kept them in place. And so I think that's where you get into these sort of authorities questions, and if the Democrats say that, I'd be like, look, for travel goods, the Section 301 tariffs on China were really painful, and we were really hopeful. So we're just concerned that these tariffs could get locked in too, even with an administration change. Despite the talking points now, we need them to go away, full stop. And I think it's challenging because you don't want to poke people in the eye who are trying to help you today, but um, it only goes so far as if you actually believe that they're still going to help you if they're in power and not just then sort of move on to something else.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have any other questions before we start wrapping things up today?
I have a quick question, Dan. This has been really helpful. Thank you. So, for the newbie here, I don't want to walk things backwards by saying something that I just didn't know. So, in order to be best prepared for our role and what our purpose is, do you have any words of wisdom on top three things that we should be really informed about and be able to speak clearly about?
No, in all honesty, if you don't know a question, and especially if they turn to political or process or something like that, you can just say, look, all of those things are pretty meaningless to me. I can just tell you about why this is so bad for me currently. Like, you don't have to be the provider of solutions. You just need to, you can always pull it back to say, look, there's a lot of jargon that gets thrown around. The reality is, I have one less person working for me today. I need someone to solve it. I don't need talking points. And so that's what to be versed on is just what are the very specific, you know, I'm a pseudo economist by trade here, so most of my job is numbers. Nobody understands big numbers. Nobody relates to big numbers. Like for a normal person at least, the difference between having $1 billion and $1 trillion is irrelevant. Um, Big difference mathematically, but in lived experience, it's irrelevant. So, what are those things that you can say that make your situation very relatable? Um, I mean, this sounds sort of cynical here to say it out loud, but we pick a group like small business owners because they're a very sympathetic audience. Your sponsors of the local little league and things like that. Like, there's a lot of these things that are really important in the community um, that small business really steps up and does. You're active in your local chambers or in the Kiwanis Club or anything like that. So those are the types of things that make your meeting memorable. It's not necessarily a big number. It's something that allows them to see a real world impact. And so what are those 2 or 3 tidbits that you can come up with? Again, we had a product that was supposed to launch and we had spent all of last year developing it and we can't do it. Like that's a huge blow. We invested all of this time and effort thinking we were about to get a big break, and it's all just stopped. Those are the examples. It doesn't just have to be the dollars. It's a what does that mean for us? So
that's really helpful. Thank you. And I think for our purposes, it'll be focused on the companies in our association that are those small businesses. So really interesting. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Again, at the end of the day, don't get sucked into the conversation they may want to have. Have the conversation you want to have, which is, these are the impacts. And on the association side, it can be, well, we've got one member who's doing this and another member that told us that and another member that told us this. And they're pretty representative of our membership. And so we know this is affecting others, but having some concrete tangibles and maybe, again, on the association side, reaching out to the people who are coming in and just asking them for some of the things that they're going to mention. Again, you'll all mostly be split up here, unless there's a need to be filled somewhere. You're not going to be together, so it's not going to be duplicative to use those examples.
Awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up and give you some of your time back today. But thanks so much, Dan. I think that really helps kind of put things in perspective as we lead into next week. So if you haven't registered for Lobby Days yet, please make sure you go do that. If you can drop that into the comments for us, Dan, we pay the
I
tariffs.com.
will. Yeah. And so the map the map link I sent right at the top says sign our open letter. So there's that map has links to sign the open letter, to see sort of them listed out as a list as opposed to a map, and also links to all of the individual state reports. Again, you don't have to worry about printing out any of those state reports. We'll have those for the team leaders. And here I can put just in case people didn't go, I'll put a copy of one in here. So we'll do Utah.
And Dan, thank you for sending that. I was looking at it just now. Sorry, I was on mute a minute ago. It's stunning, the numbers. So yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah. So I mean, again, like I said, my background here, for anyone that doesn't know, is on the economic research side, and so we built out a database, and we built it for GSP to figure out how to quantify some of these state level impacts. And we expanded it to cover all products and programs earlier this year. And so try to keep it very top line, just very visual, just to see that spike. But $550 million on imports into Utah. And so I met with Blake Moore maybe 6 weeks ago or so, and I showed him the numbers. He was just like, oh man. So they get it. They're still not out there saying these are terrible for political reasons, but they're aware, and we're trying to make sure they're even more aware going forward.
Yeah. Carol's on the phone. She's in the meeting as well, out of California. 18 billion California. Arizona's 1 billion. Half a billion is Utah, as you are showing here. Tiffany, I think she's in Texas. I haven't checked Texas yet.
Texas is like 6 billion, I think.
Yeah, it's big. No,
that's terrible.
Yeah,
but
crazy.
but
That's
yes,
for sure.
So.
Well, Dan, I'm just curious. Sorry, one real quick. I just thought it was such an interesting stat. The travel, Nate Herman had shared something, and it just fascinated me. Like travel goods it falls under, the umbrella with like clothing and I don't know, shoes or whatever. But that category is like 5% of imports, but they pay 25% of the tariffs. I mean, but I don't know how that helps in the tariff conversation. It just, to me, was so like amazing. Like I mean that, you know what I mean? How sometimes a
Yeah,
stat will just like wow, like why? You know, like why are
I
we
mean,
paying so much? You know, like it's just, and I know travel goods is probably a small portion of that, but it just, I don't know, that was a stat that told me a lot. I mean, 5% versus 25%. So I just am curious.
yeah, and
I know I like to tell more personal stories, but that was just, I didn't know what to think about that.
those are just legacies. It's, these industries were traditionally very protected, high tariff, and they always got carved out of most negotiations. They only recently started getting travel goods specifically. Only recently started getting split consideration as opposed to apparel and footwear. So that was the adding them to GSP, but.
Yeah.
That stat's probably going to become less relevant since we've applied so many tariffs to so many
I
goods.
mean, I
You're
don't
going
know
to have
how
some reversion to the mean, but
yeah, I don't know how people who import, I mean, you know, all I can tell is the story of what it looks like on the retail side and as a store owner, but I can't even fathom bringing goods in. I mean, I just can't even fathom how complicated that is right now. So, yeah.
yeah. I'm glad I'm just a researcher and policy person. I'm not actually having to complete these forms. So
Yeah, same here. And thank you.
Awesome.
You spoke my mind. I was going to say that why did we not, you know, change the tariffs when a different administration came in? So thank you for reading my mind.
yeah, and that's it's part of the message here is okay. And I'm sorry for now taking more of people's time, but like if IEPA gets struck down by the Supreme Court later this year, you're just going to have new tariffs under some other section. You're going to have Section 301 reviews. You're going to have an expansion of, why not have a national security review, Section 232 of textiles? And then now you get into this derivative product of anything made of textiles. What about oil? Well, you go downstream and now you're in plastics and anything made of, it's just, there are other authorities here. I think we're playing a bit of whack-a-mole. Even on if successful on IEPA, the big thing there is getting your money back so that, you're made whole for this next tariff fight. But really, unless we want this perpetual ruling by fiat, I think both sides have to realize that you got to pull back some of that congressional authority. No one wants to do it. It's a catch-22. Republicans want to do it when Democrats are in power. Democrats want to do it when Republicans are in power. No one wants to do it when you've got the power. And it's just sort of it makes it really tough. But part of my sort of big picture goal for this We Pay the Tariffs group and this sort of expanded lobby day is I believe that the American public is going to it's starting to happen. You're starting to see it in surveys, but I think there's going to be a big backlash to tariffs. And the question is, how do you empower and promote that so that maybe we do get some real change? And, the Democrats in 2019, they had a lot of conversations with Democrats about how harmful the Trump tariffs were. And then they all went silent when they got in power. And so, how do you make tariffs both bad policy and bad politics? Most people think it's bad policy, but think it's good politics. So how do it's unfortunate there's going to be a ton of collateral damage. It's already happening, but it'll continue to happen. But how do you at least turn that into a positive sort of policy push in the coming years, really? So.
Awesome.
I'm angry at everyone all the time. Don't worry about it. I'm just annoyed constantly. So I'm not good at most things. I'm fairly good at this, and so that was my thinking here. We'll take a shot.
No, I'm so glad that we do have you, Dan, to like stand up and fight and make sure that people understand what's really happening. So I know we appreciate it coming from the TGA, and I know you work with tons of other associations, so you're doing the good work.
Trying, and I'm not going to look so scrubby next week. I do have a haircut scheduled, all that stuff. You get here, I'm not going to look like this, but
we're all going to look different, Dan. I mean,
All right, guys. Well, if you have any questions, please be sure that you reach out either to myself, the TGA email, or Dan himself as well. But let us know if you have any questions. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for joining, guys.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
you.
Thanks, guys.